Be prepared. This week was coded to confuse you, because if you saw what's really happening, you'd never play along. Something's off in the air, and it's not just you. The full moon passed just hours ago, but nothing feels settled. The energy shifted, yes, but it didn't land. Everything looks like it's moving forward, but underneath it all, something doesn't sit right. That feeling? It's not random. It's a signal, one you were meant to notice. Because even if everything feels unclear right now, there's a reason behind it. This is the kind of week where clarity fades, but direction still matters. The ones who keep walking now, even blindly, are the ones who will end up somewhere different. And there's something strange unfolding in the background that almost no one has noticed. But once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. There's a specific pattern moving through the cosmos right now. I'll break it down in a moment, but first, there's something even more important you need to recognize. What if the weirdness you're feeling isn't even yours? April 15th doesn't look like much on paper. No dramatic planetary shifts. No full moon. No loud, obvious changes in the sky. But that's exactly why today matters. Because when the sky goes quiet, energy gets louder. And if you're paying attention, you'll feel it. You might wake up feeling off without knowing why. Maybe it's harder to concentrate. Maybe there's a strange heaviness sitting on your chest, even though nothing's wrong. You're tired, but not in a physical way. It's deeper. Like something in your energy field is fogged up. Like your soul is processing something it hasn't spoken out loud. This is what coded days feel like. Days where nothing appears to be happening, but everything is. Below the surface. Inside your emotional body. In the way you pause before responding. In the way you feel disconnected from routines that usually ground you. Something isn't sinking. And that friction isn't random. It's spiritual drag. The truth is, you're shifting, but not everything or everyone around you is ready to let go of the version of you they're used to. The one they needed. The one they could define. But that version of you has already started to dissolve. Quietly. Gradually. It's been happening for weeks. Maybe even months. And today, it catches up in the space around you. People can feel when your frequency changes, even if they don't know how to say it. They sense the gap growing. The emotional availability narrowing. The shift in your presence. And if they're not ready to lose access to you, they push back, but silently. Not through confrontation, but through resistance. You'll feel it in the tension. The confusion. The strange emotional static in the air. And here's what makes it harder, a lot of that energy will feel like it's yours. You'll think you're the one regressing. The one doubting. The one unraveling. But pause before you claim that story. Because some of what you're feeling today isn't coming from inside of you. It's being reflected onto you by people who don't understand the distance they feel from your light. The old energetic contracts are dissolving, but no one sent a memo. And so what you feel is confusion, but what's really happening is a sacred separation. This is a pressure test. Not to see if you'll collapse, but to see if you'll center. Can you stay in alignment when you feel unclear? Can you hold your frequency steady when someone else is pulling on your shadow? Can you trust the version of you that hasn't fully formed yet, but is already trying to walk forward? Don't rush to explain anything today. Don't overanalyze the fog. Just name it for what it is, coded static. The atmosphere around you is full of emotional feedback loops that have nothing to do with your present, and everything to do with your evolution. You are moving forward, and something in the past knows it. This is not collapse. It's clearance. But clearance doesn't always feel clean. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it shows up as burnout. Sometimes it shows up as numbness. And sometimes, it shows up as silence. A big, strange, quiet space around your thoughts, your emotions, and your body. Use that space. Don't try to fill it. Don't try to label it. Just stay awake inside it. Because what's forming inside the fog is sacred. What's fading is what you've already outgrown. And what's pressing against you is not asking you to fight, it's asking you to release. So if you feel slow today, move slower. If your mind feels scattered, let it rest. If emotions arise without explanation, witness them, but don't attach. Today is not here to be figured out. It's here to show you how much energy you're still unconsciously carrying that doesn't even belong to you anymore. And as the day fades into the next, that strange emotional fog doesn't lift, it deepens. And what comes next is even more deceptive. April 16th brings with it a strange kind of tension. Not loud. Not obvious. But unmistakably strange. Mercury merges with Neptune today, logic meets dreams, clarity touches fog. And in that merging, something shifts. Thoughts blur. Emotions rise. And for a moment, everything feels meaningful, until it doesn't. You might wake up thinking you've received a sign. A dream that felt like a message. A phrase you can't stop hearing. A silence that suddenly feels symbolic. But not every sign is from the divine. Sometimes what you're seeing is just your own projection, mirrored back through your most vulnerable emotions. This is the kind of day where your intuition doesn't go silent, it gets hijacked. Where fear wears the costume of guidance. Where emotion pretends to be insight. And where the line between inner knowing and old programming is almost impossible to draw. Be careful today. Not paranoid, but precise. Because what you think you're hearing may not be truth, it may just be the loudest voice in your emotional field. And the problem with emotional energy right now is that it's not stable. It's drifting. Amplified. Distorted through memory, desire, fear, nostalgia. You might find yourself reaching out for something that's already been released, convinced it means something. You might pull away from someone who hasn't changed, but your vision of them has. Illusion becomes indistinguishable from intuition. That's the trap. Not because you're weak or disconnected, but because this is what Mercury and Neptune together do. They blur the edges of what you believe you know. So before you react, before you claim certainty, pause. Ask the only question that matters right now: whose voice is this? And does it even belong to me? That one question can save you hours of backtracking, emotional unraveling, and spiritual disorientation. You might feel tempted today to figure it all out. To dig for the meaning behind every symbol. To respond to every emotional pull like it's sacred. But some things today are just noise, coded to look important, but hollow when you get too close. Like a mirage. Like an echo pretending to be a message. And the hardest part? False clarity feels real. It feels urgent. Like you have to decide something now. Like the timing is divine. Like the message is time-sensitive. That's how the illusion works. It creates pressure. It shortens your breath. It makes you feel like pausing would mean missing something. But the opposite is true. The real clarity won't push. It won't scare you. It won't demand an immediate answer. The real message is always still, waiting, unshaken by your need for closure. So take a breath. Step back from the spinning. Let the fog move without trying to navigate it. You don't need to cancel plans or question every thought, but you do need to move slower. Speak softer. Believe less of what rushes through your mind today. Let the energy settle before you decide what's real. And don't be surprised if people around you say things they don't mean, or change their mind by tomorrow. They're in the same fog. Everyone is perceiving through a filter right now, and most don't even know it. This isn't failure. It's a filter check. Today is not about fixing anything, it's about noticing where your perception is most vulnerable to interference. Because Mercury and Neptune don't just cloud thinking, they open the door to emotional suggestion. And if you're not anchored, your mind will attach meaning to things that were never meant for you in the first place. So write things down. Wait before reacting. Pay attention to how your body responds, not just your thoughts. Your spirit knows when something's off, even if your mind is enchanted by the illusion. And before you can make sense of the fog, the cosmos pulls back even more. Not to confuse you, but to create silence wide enough for truth to echo. On April 17th, Mercury reaches Ilion, its farthest distance from the Sun. The furthest point in its orbit. The moment when the mind, symbolically, steps back from the source of light. And as above, so below, you may feel yourself pulling back from clarity, from communication, from coherence. Today isn't broken, but it may feel like your thoughts are lagging behind, or racing ahead, but never quite landing where you are. You open your mouth to say something and forget what it was. Someone texts you, and you reply hours later with words that don't quite fit. Conversations feel misaligned. Timing feels slightly broken, like you're half a second off from the people and moments you're engaging with. That's not dysfunction. It's the drift. Mercury, the messenger, is pulling away. And when the messenger steps back, messages arrive on their own terms. Not through mental speed, but through intuitive delay. You may have been expecting an answer this week, a clear sign, a decision, a breakthrough. And now that you're ready, it doesn't come. That's part of the design. This is when insight travels slower. On purpose. Because it wants you to listen in a different way. Not with the mind, but with the body. Not with thought, but with presence. If you feel scattered today, let yourself be. Don't try to force focus. Don't try to fix what feels off. Let it float. Let the day be strangely silent. Let your mental rhythm unwind. This is not the time to chase answers. It's the time to breathe with the questions. Sometimes when Mercury pulls away like this, you begin to see things differently, but not through clarity. Through distance. It's like realizing how much noise you've been absorbing, simply because now, there's a pause. And in that pause, truth doesn't shout, it rises. But you'll miss it if you rush. You'll miss it if you try to force your mind to get back on track. There is no track today. There is only drift. The mind's orbit has reached its outermost ring, and it's teaching you something that urgency never could. You may find yourself revisiting thoughts from earlier in the week, conversations that didn't quite land, insights you thought you understood but now feel slippery. That's okay. This is a recalibration point. A moment when the mental channel gets quieter so something deeper can move through. Be gentle with how you interpret everything. Don't take delays as rejection. Don't take silence as disconnection. Don't assume that just because the signal is faint, it means the message is gone. It's not gone, it's just arriving from a greater distance. This is the kind of day where you might catch yourself staring at nothing, getting lost in your own head, missing steps or forgetting simple tasks. But it's not because you're off, it's because your awareness is stretching. Mercury at Ilion expands the space between the thought and the word, between the message and the moment. That space is sacred. Use it. Let your internal voice rise, not through effort, but through stillness. Don't fill the gaps in communication today. Let the pauses do what they're meant to do. Let them teach you what can only be heard when the outside noise pulls back. Because as Mercury begins its slow return, the spiritual air feels denser, but also more sensitive. Something is starting to shift, though it hasn't arrived yet. April 18th carries the weight of something approaching, but it doesn't announce itself. It whispers. It flickers. It slips into your dreams, your senses, the corners of your day you usually overlook. You might not know why a certain number keeps appearing, or why a memory from years ago suddenly comes alive in your body. You might wake with a phrase in your head you didn't fall asleep thinking about. A word. A name. A tone. Something that won't leave you alone. This is not random. This is not meaningless. This is arrival energy, before the moment hits. What's coming isn't brand new. It's something you've already been brushing up against in small ways. A thought that keeps coming back. A feeling that won't be shaken. An instinct that refuses to quiet down, no matter how rational your mind tries to be. You've felt it for days now. Maybe weeks. And today, it gets closer. You don't need to explain it yet. You don't need to decode the meaning or take action. You just need to stay open, because the moment you try to box it in, it disappears. This kind of energy isn't meant to be chased. It's meant to be recognized. You'll likely feel a growing sensitivity today. The kind that doesn't make you cry, but leaves your chest buzzing. A sense of low-voltage electricity in the background of your thoughts. The more you try to ignore it, the more obvious it becomes. That's how arrival energy works, it builds just behind the visible. And it shows up through patterns. Through tiny things. A phrase someone says that lands too deeply. A flash of déjà vu that almost knocks the wind out of you. A scene in a show that suddenly feels personal. Your soul is being prepared to receive something that doesn't need explanation, it needs recognition. Not everyone will notice. But if you're tuned in, it will feel like everything is circling the same idea, even if no one is saying it out loud. This is the moment just before the clarity drops in. The moment where your awareness is being calibrated, aligned, sensitized. You don't have to force anything. In fact, trying to figure it out too fast will only dull your receptors. It's like staring too hard at a faint light, you'll miss the glow. But if you soften your gaze, it becomes clearer. So today, let everything soften. Let your thoughts wander. Let symbols appear without hunting for meaning. Let the recurring signs repeat themselves. You're not going crazy. You're in sync with a shift that hasn't fully arrived yet. You might notice your mind trying to rationalize everything. That's okay. Let the mind speak, but don't let it override the knowing that's happening in your body. If something feels louder than it should, trust that. If something feels oddly timed, perfectly aligned, or strangely intimate, it's not a coincidence. It's a seed trying to sprout. And it's not the first time you've seen it. So slow down your reaction. Don't rush to interpret or label. Let it show itself fully. You've been prepared for this in ways you didn't even realize. Today just brings you closer to it. The truth is, there are some things that don't make sense until they land. This isn't the landing. It's the wind that moves before it. So be still. Be curious. Be open to the little things. Because the little things are often the ones holding the real signal. And if you're wondering whether what you're sensing is real, whether that strange pull towards something is leading somewhere, the question to ask isn't, what does this mean? It's this. What keeps returning to your awareness, no matter how much you try to ignore it? On April 19th, Mercury rises. Not symbolically, but literally. Just before sunrise, it reaches its highest altitude in the morning sky. It's been pulling away from the sun all week, drifting into distance. But now, for a moment, it becomes visible. Clear. Elevated. This is the delivery window. And it rarely comes with fanfare. Most people miss it entirely. But if you've been paying attention, if you've been feeling something circling your awareness, something trying to break through, you might notice today feels different. Not louder. Not more urgent. Just clearer. A sentence in a dream. A quiet knowing. A word that keeps returning. A sense of peace where tension used to live. The kind of message that doesn't interrupt your day, it drifts into it, like a breeze through a half-open window. And when it lands, you realize, you already knew. Because today isn't about new information. It's not a brand new insight. It's a return. A confirmation. Something your soul picked up earlier in the week but your mind didn't know how to hold yet. It's that feeling of, I've felt this before, but now I finally trust it. This is how clarity arrives in a week built on fog, softly. And the message may not come in words. It might be in what's not said. In who crosses your path. In the way you suddenly feel unburdened after days of heaviness. Mercury rising brings insight, but it's filtered through your energy body first. That's why it's so easy to overlook. That's why people dismiss it. So pause today. Don't rush through the morning. Don't dive straight into distraction. Let your thoughts wander a little. Let your attention rest on what's subtle. You might be surprised what speaks to you when you're not forcing anything to speak. And when it comes, whatever it is, it won't need validation. It won't need interpretation. You'll just know. You'll feel it in the soft drop of your shoulders. In the breath you didn't know you were holding. In the sudden end of a question you've been mentally repeating for days. Because when Mercury climbs this high, it's not just about communication, it's about delivery. But only for those who've been listening through the static. Only for those who didn't give up when the answers were slow. This is the reward for staying present while things made no sense. And this is the day to trust what arrives. Even if it's quiet. Even if it's not what you expected. Especially if it comes gently. Because gentleness doesn't mean weakness. It means precision. It means the message didn't have to shout, because it was meant only for you. If something clicks today, honor it. If you feel sudden clarity, trust it. Don't over-explain it. Don't water it down by second-guessing. You've been sensing this all along. Today, you just finally hear it. This is the turning point. Not in your schedule, but in your alignment. A course correct that happens within. A new direction that doesn't require movement, just agreement. And your only job today is to say yes to what feels quietly, deeply right. And as this soft clarity settles in, a deeper shift unfolds beneath the surface. One not of the mind, but of embodiment. On April 20th, the Sun leaves Aries and enters Taurus. Fire becomes earth. The spark becomes a root. And everything you've initiated over the last few weeks is now asking to be grounded. This is where the momentum of Aries season slows, not because it failed, but because it needs form. Aries begins. Taurus holds. You may feel it the moment you wake. Not as a burst of energy, but as a quiet tug to slow down. You're not being asked to keep pushing. You're being invited to land. After weeks of fast thoughts, spiritual downloads, emotional spikes, now comes the question, can you build with what you've received? Taurus energy doesn't chase. It doesn't burn quickly. It cultivates. It listens to rhythm. It trusts in the slow unfolding of things that last. And when the Sun enters this sign, it brings with it the reminder that consistency is a form of power. That staying is sometimes more important than arriving. This is the moment to shift from impulse to intention. From raw initiation to sacred stabilization. From passion that flares up fast to presence that stays even when nothing dramatic is happening. That doesn't mean the fire has gone out, it means it's found something worth warming. You may feel drawn to routines again. To your body. To nature. To rest that isn't laziness but nourishment. Let yourself slow down without guilt. The wisdom you need right now won't come through urgency. It will arrive through stillness. Through small, repeated gestures of care. Through anchoring yourself in a life you actually want to keep waking up in. This is a great day to ask deeper questions about what you're doing with the energy you've been given. Not just what you're building, but how. With what kind of energy? With whose values? In what environment? The seeds you water now are the ones that will root in the season ahead. So choose carefully. Choose slowly. Don't let the world rush you back into movement for the sake of appearance. Today asks you to move with intention, or not at all. Let the things you begin now be things you're willing to tend over time. Not everything needs to be loud. Not everything needs to be launched. Some things grow best in silence. Taurus season also brings your attention back to embodiment. To what your body is holding. To how your nervous system is responding to the weight of this past cycle. Give yourself permission to check in physically. Where are you holding tension? Where are you forcing momentum that isn't aligned? Where are you craving rest but overriding it in the name of productivity? This isn't the season for burnout. It's the season for blooming. But blooming takes groundedness. It takes a root system. And today, you begin building that, not in theory, but in practice. Let your breath slow. Let your pace soften. Let the space around you feel like something sacred again. This isn't regression. This is return. To rhythm. To soil. To slowness that remembers what matters. You've had the fire. Now ask yourself, what are you building now that the fire has passed? What deserves your roots? This week was never empty. It only looked that way on the surface. No massive celestial storms. No dramatic astrological explosions. But underneath, everything was moving. Quietly. Precisely. Spiritually. The fog, the distance, the stillness you felt, they weren't failures. They were clearings. Open spaces carved out by the cosmos so something deeper could finally land. This wasn't the week to chase clarity. It was the week to make room for it. The pattern has been unfolding all along. April 13th, the moon reached apogee, pulling away from Earth. April 16th, both Mercury and the moon hit Ilion, drifting to their farthest points. April 17th, Mercury fully retreated, thoughts scattered, timing went soft. April 19th, Mercury rose, and for those listening, the message dropped in. April 20th, the Sun entered Taurus, grounding everything in the body, in presence, in quiet knowing. This wasn't random. It was a reset. Not the kind you can mark on a calendar, but the kind that happens in your inner world, in your nervous system, in your spiritual rhythm. You were pulled back, not pushed down. The noise didn't stop, it stepped aside. So you could hear what's always been waiting in the silence. Because when the cosmos pulls back, it's not rejection. It's not abandonment. It's alignment. It's the grace of space, so clarity can reach you in a way it couldn't before. So now, take a moment. Breathe back through the days. What repeated? What pressed on your heart in quiet moments? What symbols wouldn't leave you alone? What memory kept resurfacing without reason? You don't have to explain it. You don't have to understand it. You just have to witness it. Let that be your offering, a word, a feeling, a symbol, dropped in the comments not to be seen, but to say, I heard it. Even if I don't have the words yet. And if this kind of cosmic decoding speaks to something deep in you, subscribe. You're not here for predictions. You're here for alignment. And you were never meant to walk this path asleep.